Hey guys, and welcome to a new video. We're going to be installing SQL 17 today. We're going to be looking at the configuration best practices as well as how to amend the configuration file for unattended installation. The reason why we're doing that is because the unattended installation file will be used for SCCM deployment for when you want to package up the application to deploy to virtual machines. So we'll take you from the very beginning. So if you bring up your hypervisor, create a new virtual machine. So we're going to call it 16 SQL 17. Let's dump it somewhere. We're going to give it a G2. We're going to give it plenty of RAM because it is a SQL. Connected to the network. And install the ISO. Now this is all pretty straightforward stuff. Once your VM is created, what you want to do really is edit the settings and increase the virtual processor from 1, otherwise it'll take forever to install. Start it up. Go through the standard installation settings. Once the installation has started, we can actually add in the further drives. Now for SQL, it is recommended that we split out the workloads onto separate drives. And the reason why we do this is so that you can place the VHDs or the virtual drives onto, so if you're putting it into a cluster, you can actually put your workloads onto different types of storage tiers and so forth. So that is why we separate it out. So while that's going ahead, let's edit some settings and create some further additional disks. So if we add in another drive, call that SQL 17 data. I'll put that onto a different volume just to spread my I/O out a bit. I'm going to create one for the log files. Now, one of the reasons why we separate the log drive from the data drive is if SQL is not maintained properly, then the logs files can basically fill up the drive quite quickly. And if you've got your main database on there, that can actually effectively take the database offline. So that's why we separate it out. So at least you've still got plenty of space within the data drive. So I'll let that finish and then come back to it in a minute. So once you're fully patched, go to the ISO. So if you go over to settings, apply that. Under my PC, we should have the ISO file mapped into the VM. Go over to installation, new install. Accept the terms. You would normally say yes to this, but I know there's no updates, so there's no point. Now then, so this is where you would actually select what options you want. Now, obviously, we always need database services. I usually do full text as well. Just like SQL 16, the management tools are no longer included as part of the install. So you have to install them and download them manually. Just verify that you want to go to, if you want to install it on the C drive or anywhere else. Specify the instance name, which will keep it default. Now, this is where you would change your accounts. So you would normally put a domain account in here. So we set the startup type for the SQL agent to be automatic. I'm going to leave them as default. And also don't forget to change your collation as well. So obviously that's the default. So we'll change that over to SQL Latin General CIAS. Hit next. Now this is where you put your users in. So in my case, I'm just going to put in the current user. But you would also put in, so if you would have a group for SQL admins, or also domain admins and so on, then you would put that in here as well. On the secondary tab, this is where we change our directory. So early in the video, when we created the VM, we were specifying different locations for the drives. So if we go over to disk management, we should now find those drives that we created ready to use. So here we have our log drive. So first of all, we'll just bring them online. Initialize the disks. Just quickly format it. So we'll call it logs. And the other one we'll call data. So F and E. So we'll put the database in F. We'll put the logs in E. If you'd created another drive, or if you've got a high-speed drive or a flash drive, then you could put tempdb in there as well, and that will also help with performance. For the purpose of this video, I'm not going to bother, but so hit next. Now then, this is where your configuration file is. So everything you've done here is written out to a text file. So if you take a copy of that, go into your Explorer, paste it in, remove the file. That will give you your file there. Grab a copy of that and put it somewhere else. I'm going to put it there, for example. So if we actually edit this file, this is everything that you've just said in a text format. So what we'll do is we'll go back to that in a minute and then hit install. And that is the installation complete. Now, I've cancelled it because we're going to install it again using the configuration file. Now, you can do the configuration file from the setup menu. So if you go into advanced and go to install is based on configuration file, you can just simply browse to wherever we put it here, and then it'll go off. As you can see there, look, it started. And that's will pre-populate all of your fields with the contents of the text file. Obviously, that is still manual. You see, everything is ticked for us, so we don't need to go through. So it would make the installation quicker. But what would make it even quicker is our ability to run setup directly from that text file itself. And therefore, we don't have any of these settings, you know, the GUI and so on. But we need to make some amendments to that file before it'll work. So let me come out of this. Let's go back to that file and edit it. So what we need to do is change that to true. Suppress privacy notice set to true. I accept terms set to true. We also need to add one as well, and it is I accept SQL Server license terms is true. Now we also need to make some changes to the way it's displayed. So quiet will literally display nothing. Or if you want a UI, but you've got no interaction with it, you would set that to true. UI mode to normal. We need to, you know, remove it or you can comment it out. Just use that to comment out any lines. Scroll down. Here we have another one here, indicate progress. So that's very similar to the GUI. If you want to put the output of the installation to a console, you would set that to true. So the rest of it is going through all the settings that we had done. This line here, add current user as SQL admin, needs to be removed as well. Now simply save this file. Now what we're going to do is we're going to launch the setup again, but using that configuration file. So we know it's on D, so let's run a command prompt. Do as an admin. So we'll browse over to D, and that's our ISO. So we'll run setup, and then we add a parameter on there for configuration file equals F. Now if we just press tab, it'll fill it out because it already knows that's the file there. So it saves us any typing mistakes. What we can do is we can bring up Task Manager. And there we'll have the scenario engine running. So as we can see, because we've said we want the GUI to display, but we have no interaction with it. It's running there, look, and it'll just go off now and install it. If we'd have set quiet to true, then we wouldn't even see this. It would literally just be running in the background and installing. So when it comes down to SCCM and you want to package the application, that is the executable that we'll run. So you run setup based on the source and then run it from the configuration file, and that will then go off and install SQL for you in a silent fashion. So the next thing we need to install is the SQL management tools. Now you can download these. You can just Google SSMS, and then that will bring up a download link. And the latest version at the time of recording was 17.3. I've already downloaded it, so let's get this onto my machine here. Now, an easy way of installing that file would be just to double click on it. Now, I'm also going to take you through, because there's not really any configuration changes to make, you just run it and install it. So to install it silently, we just run it with /install /no restart and /quiet. And that is what you would put into SCCM if you was installing it. And that should install our management tools in the background. There we go, there's it running. And that'll take around 20 minutes or so to install. So we'll let that run through and then we'll come back with the next section. So once that's finished installing, we can go into SQL Tools and then run the management suite for the first time. Log in. And there we have it running. Now, for those that are looking for the SCCM installations, what we can actually do is if we go into the registry and go into local machine software, Microsoft SQL Server, which is there, go into 140 folder, go into SQL 17, and then go into current version. So our version at present, with no patches, no upgrades, nothing, is 14.0.1000.169. So in SCCM, when you're doing a version detection, that is the key that you're going to be looking for, and that will tell SCCM that SQL has been installed. Now, for those that were eagle-eyed when I was first installing it, you would have noticed that there was no reporting services. Now, reporting services like the Management Studio have been removed from the basic installation, and they are now a separate download. So let's go through the install of that. Now, for those that are looking for the silent install parameters, if you just give it a question mark, that will give you all the parameters that you need for the unattended install. So which would be /quiet, no restart, any change of installation folder, and that you accept the license terms. Let's run it for the first time in normal mode to see what kind of questions we get, if any. So I have an evaluation, accept the license, install reporting services, install. Now, the beauty about having reporting services, management studio, and so on, all as separate components, is if you are installing SQL through any kind of automated fashion, like using self-service portals and so on, you can ask those kind of questions. You can say, do you require reporting services? Do you require management studio? And that can then trigger the installation of those independent objects. Now, granted, you could do it before, but you would have to be amending the SQL configuration file through the features element. You have to be adding in SSRS and SMMS, and you'd have to dynamically create that line in the text file. So, albeit possible, it is actually much easier now that they've actually separated those components out. So it makes life for people like me who do unattended installations of software and dynamically install software depending upon users' requirements in my day-to-day role. Actually splitting these out is very, very good from my perspective. So the reporting configuration manager is exactly the same as what we'd had before. Set the URLs. You set the database, create a new reporting database, and so on. So nothing here is really any different. And there we have reporting services up and running. So that's it from my perspective on SQL 17. I hope you found the video informative. And if you like, please review my other videos and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, guys. Cheers.